So India's trade deficit with China is $80 billion. We export 20, they export 100 to us. And how I am going to bridge this deficit? Ultimately, outcome will depend on three, four things. One, the most important thing is that if US is able to make these things which they are importing, nobody can be too prepared for an unpredictable person. All we need to do is reduce cost of making things, promote ease of doing business at a very deep trench level. The good thing we can do to ourselves under Trump pressure is to expedite all these pending works, sacrifice small positions, focus on the big things, and complete the job. We are too big to be pressurized by anyone unless we want to be pressurized. Trump phenomena is very short-term phenomena. After a few years, we'll be only laughing at this moment. It's a blip in time. We should just ignore, just survive this without committing ourselves to things which will hurt us later. So last time it was US versus China. This time it's more diverse, US versus rest of the world. And if we impose anti-dumping or safeguard duties, then it's bad for us. One big example is steel. FTA is very fancy word. People feel you sign FTA and then your trade will shoot up. The less than 20% of world trade happens through preferential route. We should be respectful to everyone, but we should not take decisions under any influence, under any duress.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ringside view on Trump tariff or Trump terror. As markets are taking the real heat of the uncertainty which is unraveled, we are very happy to have with us Mr. Ajay Srivastava. He's a former Indian Trade Service officer, serving as India's Additional Director General of Foreign Trade, and was part of India's core WTO and FTA negotiation teams. He now leads the Global Trade Research Initiative, a highly respected think tank on trade policy, and of course writes frequently in many publications. They analyze global trade, tariff, and India's evolving FTA stance and what it means for global and domestic economy and markets. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Amisha. Thanks for inviting me.
So, as my economist says, US slaps 26% tariff, but opportunity knocks. And he feels that this is advantage India over tariff hit Asian peers, notably Vietnam and China. He also believes that while gems and jewelry, which is skill-based but low entry barrier, can feel the real heat, textile and apparel can have an edge and open a larger Indian market with Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, all having larger tariffs. Footwear, tariff shock to Vietnam opens window for India. Light manufacturing, tariff on rivals open door for India, like toys, textiles, leather. Automobiles and auto part, limited direct impact. Electronics, iPhone led surge, faces 26% tariff hit, but India is still favored against China. Chemical, a mixed outlook. Machinery exporters under pressure. And in all this, trade talks ahead, tariff as leverage, deal possible by late 2025. Now, as we look at this entire maze of uncertainty which is created by the tariffs, my first question still would be, what is he trying to achieve? Is it that a move of globalization, which was started, say, almost 3 to 5 decades back, Do you think that now American economy will be competitive enough to get onshore some of the manufacturing? Is it the real intention? Of course, common sense impact like inflation, reduction in demand. If all understand, I'm sure they understand. So, how do you think that they are looking through this maze and what are they trying to achieve?
Amisha, I'll give you an example. Suppose I place myself at the place of Trump, and I'm in India. So India's trade deficit with China is $80 billion. We export 20, they export 100 to us. And how I am going to bridge this deficit? I say put more tariffs on China. If I don't make things, putting tariffs will not help. So that's America at the bigger level. They have deficit with everyone for many reasons, and they feel that hurting others' exports, making others' exports expensive, that will help U.S. manufacturing. That's not going to happen. Why I am saying is that there's a history. This is not for the first time. During his first term, he started this trade war in a big way. When you recall, in March 18, what he did, he imposed tariffs on 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum on everyone. But then he targeted China with tariffs on hundreds of lines. And then Mr. Biden continued his policy after he went. And what was the result? So we did an interesting study. We compared US imports from China in the world during 2017, 1 year before the trade war started, and 2023, last full year data was available. So between 2017 and 23, US imports from China, they decreased by $80 billion. So US must be happy that we put tariff and they will come. But US global imports, they increased by $760 billion. $80 billion is a cut, but increase in trade deficit by $760 billion. And during this time, China's global exports increased by $1 trillion. So US was a clear loser. Their trade deficit increased. China was a clear gainer, even though they were the main country targeted. And much, many of the Chinese goods, earlier they were going to US paying the normal tariffs, but now they were going to US via Mexico, via Vietnam, and many other countries using FTA route, paying no tariffs. So that was what happened in the first trade war when they primarily targeted China. This time it's going to be the worst for the US because they are targeting whole of the world, not only China. So they target one country and your deficit increased by $760 billion, and you target whole of the world. You see what's going to happen. We'll all see. So I think I should stop here and wait for your question.
No, but why do you say that when they have targeted now, say Vietnam, Mexico, Bangladesh, so on and so forth, which were the grounds which were used to enter US by either China or China flooding the other markets and then entering US? Why do you think when all other Asian peers are also targeted, still the outcome will be same?
Ultimately, outcome will depend on 3-4 things. One,
Correct.
the most important thing is that if US is able to make these things which they are importing, and US is almost absent from most of the industrial product sectors. They're into commodities like oil and gas. They're into agriculture products. They're into very high-tech products, semiconductors, aircrafts, and parts. But in between chemicals and petrochemicals, engineering goods, textiles, all other labor intensive, they are very weak or simply absent. And these goods, they require cheap labor, and they are developed country, and they can't make these things. They have to rely on imports. If they are making these imports expensive, their consumers, custom duties, we all know it will be paid by the US consumers, not by the exporting country.
Absolutely.
So their prices are increasing, and we have seen how the inflation is increasing. People are crying. So many reports are telling many things. So now Asian peer. In India, for the past 2 days, especially yesterday, the discussion was initially we said very high tariffs on India, but when we looked at the tariffs of our other Asian neighbors, many of us felt slightly happy. Okay, now maybe some part of Chinese or Vietnamese or Bangladesh, some goods we may export from India to the US. But for that to happen, two things are very much needed. First, it's an opportunity, no doubt. But Trump says that India charges 52% tariffs on US goods, and he's taking half of that, discounted at 26%. So that means it's a generosity on his part. He says, I'm doing a favor. I should have hit you with 52%. I'm hitting you with 26%. And this is the public news. Now in private, what will happen is that Government of India will receive many demands. Do this, change this policy, help our companies, big companies, we all know their names. And if you don't do this, you deserve to be hit by 52%. And that will happen with many countries. It's not India specific. He will do that with all the countries. So in this scenario, if I'm an investor and I see, okay, India 26%, China more than double, Vietnam also very high, let's invest in India. No, I'll wait. Everybody knows Trump is an unpredictable person. I'll wait for a few months before putting my dollar or rupee in India or any other country based on what Trump is doing. Because anyway, general impression is that it will start unraveling very soon. So one is that Trump is unpredictable. Today we see some leverage. He may diminish or he may finish all the leverage with one order at the midnight. Second is, forget about Trump. Suppose he will not touch this for 20 years. This 26% will remain there. So it's an opportunity for us. But it's an opportunity. If opportunity is there in the air to grab that and translate into hardcore economic activity, I need to be ready. When I say their garments, Bangladesh is facing higher tariffs, or China or Vietnam, I should do this. But average factory size in Bangladesh, labor employed is 5,000. In our case, its average is 300. Of course, we have many large firms, but average size is very low. So opportunity is there. To translate that opportunity, it requires sectoral work. And so a lot of cleaning up required, a lot of sector specific reforms required, and then only we can talk about these things. So it's very easy to say that textile will benefit because of this, electronics will benefit this, but there are 2 3 big ifs. I'll stop here.
Could you elaborate it? So you touched upon our worries a bit. That Trump tariff now covers 700 billion of global trade, which is almost 6% of global GDP. And in your view, what second order effects, like delays in investments, cost push inflation, currency volatility, should Indian policymakers and exporters and businessmen prepare themselves for?
I think nobody can be too prepared for an unpredictable person. We need to do is reduce cost of making things, promote ease of doing business at a very deep trench level. We talk as if it's a buzzword, some that we simplified these many rules. No. I take a sector, a product, and I talk to the people there, small and big people. Okay, what are genuine problems at the customs, at the DGFT, at the bank level, at the shipping lines? What are the problems? And see if I can solve half of them. That will be enough for us. So my thing is that focus on product innovation, make high quality products, focus on cutting cost of doing business, cost of making things, and they will require much work. We should not worry about Trump and all those things if we are ready. If you make a product like iPhone, whatever is the tariff, it will sell. People will snatch it from you, whatever is the cost. So we have to focus on product innovation. We have to focus on cutting cost on whatever we do, improving quality. These are buzzwords, but this is how the business runs. And too much focus on external things. No, no, no. We have to see internally first. There are many infirmities which we have to solve, and we should not waste too much time on what Trump says. Of course, whatever he says, we'll see whether we have to comply with that or we have to retort, retaliate, and all those things. That we may see, but that part government is largely responsible for. For the industry, I say only do one thing: make just one pager, see how your competitiveness has changed after these Asian neighbors tariff, and see how much your product, if it goes to US, how much is the share of US to your global exports, how much the new tariffs will be there. In US, they will be over and above the existing MFN tariffs. And that should take not more than one page. Just make a table for your product, HS code wise, and that's it. After that, you worry about your internal things. Don't worry too much. You're not in position to do anything.
Having said so, countries like European countries, China, as on a country level, as we all know, of course, India, there will be bilateral agreements and talks. How would that shape up, particularly for India and also for China as a second step? What would be the key things that India will keep in mind while discussing these bilateral agreements?
So even without Trump, these things are always happening. But Trump-like actions, they put a sense of urgency on them. You must have noticed immediately after Trump's announcement about a month back, European Union President Ursula, she flew to India and spoke that we would like to conclude the FTA within this year. And we are negotiating that FTA since 2007. I was part of that negotiating team for over 10 years. Nothing was happening because our differences were very wide. But now she says 1 year. That means from both the sides they are willing to make concessions for each other. That's a good news. So when Trump-like pressures come, then countries, they behave properly. They leave a small idiosyncrasies. I mean, I'm talking both India and EU and India and UK. Otherwise, negotiators, we don't want to leave any of our positions. When an external pressure comes from third party, then we sort of compromise our smaller pawns. So I think that's happening. So India EU is being expedited. India UK is almost done deal. The moment they decide at the senior level, it can be done. India Oman is done deal. India Canada, because of political scuffle, we stopped that. That should be started. Canada is economically, our products are complementary. They don't hurt each other. Then, so this is about the new FTAs. We have many existing FTAs. We are reviewing. Government is reviewing most of them. And so, what Trump, the good thing we can do to ourselves under Trump pressure is to expedite all these pending works, sacrifice small positions, focus on the big things, and complete the job. I'll stop here.
Okay. What about our bilateral agreement with US? How would India take up the position with US?
So when our Prime Minister visited US on February 13th this year, both the sides, they announced that they will be negotiating a free trade agreement. And last week, US team was here to finalize the terms of references of it, and we got some vague news that terms of references have been finalized, and now negotiations they can shape up after some time. But that's the government news. That's what is happening. But personally, I think it will hurt India more than it will benefit us. There are two parts of any free trade agreements. The major part is tariffs, and tariffs, again, two parts are there: agriculture and other than agriculture. So agriculture, we are not in position to grant concessions to US or any country on most products. We cannot allow opening of lowering of tariffs on basic agriculture products like rice, wheat, sugar, because millions and millions of farmers' fate, livelihood is dependent on them. It's not a trade issue for us. But the US wants many things in this. They want us, they know that we will cut industry tariffs. They're not talking about that. We have not cut tariffs on passenger cars to in any of our FTAs. So they say open passenger cars for us. So I have an objection. Uh, since he is talking about reciprocal tariff, our passenger car exports to US are just $9 million. So just 0.1% of our global exports. So we say you put not 25%, 25, 100% tariff. Our car industry will not even notice the absence of US market. It's almost nothing for us. So, but if we cut auto tariffs for US cars, auto sector is highly protected. I'm not happy with that, but when I see that auto sector contribute to third of our manufacturing GDP, it's a big sector. When you talk about auto sector, don't only think about some high-end executives. Think about the people working the garage all over the country roads. More than 4 crore people, they support their livelihood through auto sector. All these puncture walas to high-end garage walas, low-end garage walas, more than 4 crore people are there. So if you are not getting anything in return, why hurt this big functioning, well-functioning sector? This is our top sector. So I say agriculture is a no-no, auto sector is a no-no. Leaving these two, you offered to US that India undertakes to eliminate tariffs on everything else, provided you also do the same. But Amisha, if you've noticed, US doesn't have the fast track authority right now. It's a technical term. So what happens is that US Congress, they authorize the president, US president, to negotiate trade agreements. Since 2021, there is no fast track authority. This means if fast track authority is there, then the US team will negotiate and it will present the final thing to Congress. Congress will accept or reject, it cannot modify. Right now, they are negotiating, so they don't have any mandate for this. It will go to Congress. They may add something, delete something, may ask for renegotiation. So, and US most important negotiations have been done only with the approval of the fast track authority. Right now, they don't have. Still,
With the which authority, sir?
it's called fast track trade authority.
Fast track authority. Correct.
Okay, so they don't have. So that means they're asking everyone to cut tariffs, like reciprocal tariffs announced yesterday. What are they? US is not doing anything. They are imposing on you. That's it. They are not cutting even 1%, 0.5% of their tariffs. Similarly, in FTA, I don't think they are going to cut any of their tariffs. They are not authorized. They only want you to cut. So why? We are big economy. We are fifth largest and soon become fourth or third or whatever. And we should act as equals. So I say, okay, US is our top trade partner. You don't touch agriculture, you don't touch auto, rest offer them zero, subject to their reciprocating. I don't think they are going to reciprocate. Yeah, they only want one way, it's one way street for US for now. So this is about one part. This is not, so tariff, you're saying something.
Yes. So I am intervening, clarifying that in that scenario, as you are seeing it, that they don't have fast track authority currently, India will be most likely a status quo, that we will learn to live with this 26%.
I would love that.
Okay. That's a best case outcome according to you.
Yes, Amisha, you got it right. So my proposal at this is you only talk about cutting tariffs on these non-agriculture, non-auto lines subject to their reciprocating. If they don't do it, ask them to get lost in whatever polite language we can tell to them. But FTA is about more than cutting tariffs. So, for whole of the world, the ordeal ended yesterday. when he announced tariffs, right, wrong, big, small, but they know what it is. Now, for a few months at least, they can sleep happily. For us, ordeal has just started. We have to negotiate FTAs. And what is FTA? Not only tariffs. You know what is FTA? They are saying that our minimum price support schemes, which where we subsidize our wheat and rice farmers. They say, no, it's trade distorting, you modify it. We cannot touch that for trade purpose. They, and dairy, what they are saying, it's very interesting. So they are saying that, India restricts, I'll give you an example. Suppose we are importing butter from the US, and butter is made using the milk of a cow. So we restrict import of such butter if the cow is fed along with other feed, fed the internal organs and meat and blood of another cow, living or dead cow, whatever. We restrict this, and I don't need to explain reason why we restrict this. But they say this is non-tariff barrier. Remove this. They are different from us. Okay, so agriculture, they say MSP problem, this dairy restriction, this is stupid, cow and feeding, all this is stupid, remove this. Then they say cut tariffs on agriculture, they are very high. They are high, we say, but it's reciprocal. No? We don't cut it. You improve the tariffs, and all this when their exports of agriculture to India are less than 5% of their total exports. We are undertaking to cut tariffs on almost 90% of their exports, but they are not happy. So this is about agriculture. It's not alone. They will come to intellectual property rights. So they say dilute patent laws, which means you allow evergreening of the patents. What's meaning of that? There is a product patent, which means I invent a molecule, a new drug molecule, and for 20 years nobody can make generic copy of that. Okay, so 20 years we respect that, there is no problem. But after 20 years they feel now generics will be low cost, generics will be produced by India or other countries. They try to put some stupid molecule within that original molecule. That molecule doesn't alter the efficacy of the original medicine. So this way they want to continue, or we say evergreen greening of the patents, so that patent should continue beyond 20 years. So Indian law doesn't accept that. So they are forcing us. Their pharma lobby is forcing us. So if we negotiate FTA, there will be pressure on this. Then they say digital. RBI rules. They say that data flow, for financial data flow, the server should be in India. They say no, no, no. There should not be India. There should be no restriction on data flow. And so I can list 50 things which they want to the FTA. So that's why I say ordeal of most countries have ended yesterday. Ours continue. So we should dump this FTA. If they want to cut tariffs on whatever we are just discussing, do it and just dump it, walk out. But this is my personal view. Government doesn't accept this.
But then you need to explain us as what are those compulsions basis which government feels that they should still continue the dialogue. Is it that they can arm twist us in some of the defense equipment, or they can arm twist us in gas, or where can they really put that pressure so that we will still be on table?
Personally speaking, it's not a war. Nobody is going to bomb you. It is only talks and tweets and 25% tariffs, all these things. I mean, there is no immediate danger, and we are too big to be pressurized by anyone unless we want to be pressurized. Okay. And so at the country level, I don't see any reasons. Our security experts and all those foreign experts, they talk about a lot of dependence. I don't want to recognize any dependence. So at the personal level, tell me, Amisha, we are staying in a mohalla where one big person abuses us. Do we want to have any relations with that? We say, okay, let's be business as usual, no problem, but we'll not come very close to you. We'll not visit each other's house. We'll do business because that's how world runs. So US, Mr. Trump has been insulting India in public forums, and mostly using wrong data. Like he says, 100 billion tariff with 100 billion deficit with India, it's 45 billion. He talks about higher tariffs, the tariffs are less than that. So I say if any pressures are there, I don't recognize any. And are how can I say it doesn't look good? But if you look at the past 40, 50 years of history, whenever India was in weak position, US was only siding with our opponents, enemies, be it Pakistan, be it whatever. We don't need to recall all those things. So I say is a big economy. We have great relationships that should continue, but we should not compromise any of our national honor or any principle that will hurt our people. Trump phenomena is very short-term phenomena. After a few years, we'll be only laughing at this moment. It's a blip in time. We should just ignore, just survive this without committing ourselves to things which will hurt us later. तो वो बोलते हैं ना कि वो that medicine should not be worse than the malady.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
But you made one statement that this is my view.
Hmm.
So you think India is adopting a different view? And where do you concur this from?
So of course, India and my views and the government views are at 180-degree on the FTA. They are going ahead with the FTA. They must be seeing lot of merit, which somehow with my limited intelligence I don't see. But I'm willing to engage in any discussions because we are all friends. We all want good for the country. Everybody, all of us, you, me, government, everybody. So, but we can differ. So it's better that we dialogue in a friendly way and try to see what's good for the country. But my views are totally opposite.
Do you think that your views are keeping long term in mind while you also accept that these tariffs in short term would cause both a major global slowdown because of delays in decision making is also somewhere uh, consumers paying more of the largest and most spending economy, and in turn it will also slow down substantially both India growth, disturb India industry. What are your views on that?
So to answer the last question first, which is again, experts don't like this, but I'm very sure. See, there are big economies like US, China, India, Japan. Then there are small and smart economies like Vietnam or Singapore. For big economies are never driven by exports. We are not export-driven economy.
Of course, we are domestic
So,
driven.
so export is less than 20% of our GDP. I mean, for
Correct.
America, export is 11 or 12% of their GDP. For China, it's 21% or 20% GDP, same like India, because they're 6, 7 times economy, their exports are that big. Okay, so the economy size decides. Exports is an outgrowth of your GDP or economic growth. We don't compromise our policies to invite MNCs at the expense of our industry or agriculture. So small countries, they don't have these hindrances, like Singapore. They're entrepot, so every tariff is zero, and they want the best international firms to operate from there. They have no population to take care of, no sensitive things for them. Similarly, Vietnam, if I was looking at Vietnam and European Union trade agreement. So even if a street tender is there, or sewage tender is there, or water tender is there in a Vietnam municipality, EU firms can directly bid for that. We cannot allow those things. We cannot allow. When people talk about Vietnam story, I'm very impressed with Vietnam. In a short time, they achieved so much, but it has a cost. Are we willing to bear that cost? We never discuss in detail. I think we cannot. Of course, not that we need hundreds of reforms in India. They are holding us up. If we do those things, even without FTAs, our GDP will increase and people will be happier with those things. So, FTA is you want to solve your problem by external means. Oh no, look back and see what we can do to ourselves. There will be more effective if not dependent on others. I think I did not answer your question. If you have to repeat if I didn't answer.
Sure. I did say one more part, that do you expect that in short term, which is 6 months to 2 years, do you see that the global growth as well as Indian growth will substantially suffer, both the actual GDP growth and the investment in the economies globally and in India because of these uncertainties?
Okay, let's talk about India first. So all this is tariff. Tariff means products means manufacturing and some agriculture. Agriculture trade is very small, $50 billion only. Our economy, 60% is services, and most of the growth is coming from services. Manufacturing, anyway, we are not growing much. Share is down to 13, 14% only from 17% a few years back. And tariff, if I assume tariff will hurt, they will hurt manufacturing. Services sector is intact. So growth story, I don't think growth story will have any problem. That's point number one. And if we do, like people are telling Asian neighbors they're at a bigger disadvantage, then maybe why not we can start making more things, and with some reforms we can improve our manufacturing sector and start exporting more. So at the GDP level, I don't see any problem. And whatever problems are, they are internal problems. They will not be caused by the Trump tariff. If at all, it will be some basis point impact, nothing more than that. So for two reasons, we are not an export-driven economy, and then our most GDP comes from just 13% from manufacturing. These two reasons. And about the global level, of course, now everything is manufactured under global value chains. 10 years back, we were talking about laptops being manufactured in 30 countries or iPhones from 30, 40 countries. But now, even smaller products, see this shirt I'm wearing, a cotton shirt, suppose a firm like Zara or H&M, they decide to introduce a shirt in their global 10,000 showrooms after 30 days. So they start backward. India makes the best quality cotton and yarn. So they say, okay, I buy yarn from you. But you make good quality yarn, you don't make good quality fabric. That it's not uniform quality fabric. Dyeing is not good. Fabric is not good. You export this yarn to this particular firm in China. They make the best quality fabric. They don't have yarn. So I export that yarn to China, and China makes great quality fabric, but they are not the best in dyeing. So the fabric flies to Spain, and Spain is a developed country. They cannot stitch and convert fabric into garments. So dyed fabric moves to Bangladesh, Vietnam, Ethiopia, low-cost countries, and from there, within 30 days, it reaches the global 10,000 showrooms. So I said everything. Even I give you the example of shirt. We can't have a simpler product than shirt. It's happening at shirt, bicycle. Forget about the electronics and machinery. Everything is happening on those. So shared production. So shared production means I am working at 2-3% value addition, 10% value addition max, and mostly at low tariff or no tariff regime. Now this 25%, 40% tariffs are there. So it will change the flow of the goods, flow of the raw materials, intermediates across the globe. And like we just discussed some time back that during the first trade war, Chinese goods indirectly they were reaching US via Mexico or Vietnam. So last time it was US versus China. This time it's more diverse, US versus rest of the world. So this time also that restructuring will happen. What route it will take, we'll come to know after 6 months to 1 year, because they will watch if Trump is consistent, doesn't alter this strategy, relative disadvantage, then the restructuring will happen. That will hurt global trade. The global trade will come down, and US global trade deficit will increase. Global trade will come down. So all the countries will suffer a bit in this process.
That is looking inevitable.
Yes.
Sir, as we have already reached 12:40, I feel I should open the floor for questions.
Most welcome.
And this was extremely insightful and covering some of the broader fundas as well as deep, minute nitty-gritty, which I think was very enlightening. But now I will open it for some time for the participants. You can also read the chats, and I will also try and read for you. The questions are in chat. Okay.
If you can read it, then we can be on the same page. Yes.
I think this person probably has not read. He says, following the pressure of the increased US tariffs, in your view, what could be Indian government and policy makers are likely to do on cutting down tariffs in agriculture, auto, and other sectors, and or signing deals with EU and the UK?
I think we have discussed this. So when two countries negotiate FTAs, they wait for the outcome. But Trump doesn't know these niceties. He has gone ahead and imposed the tariffs. So now, whatever we do, before even his imposition, we did a lot of unilateral cutting of tariffs in budget. If you recall, we cut tariffs on
Of course, we went ahead with that only.
yeah, yes. And he didn't have any of these. In fact, a person like me will feel that we showed a weaker side of ourselves by granting unilateral concessions. So
Correct.
he has done it. He has done it. We should not do any suo moto thing. It will be gobbled without even acknowledgement. So
Correct.
my view is that we should just keep quiet.
Mm, correct. What is the threat of China dumping their such large production, which now will get little hampered in US to the rest of the US markets at cheaper rates?
Yes, people are talking. If anything happened, they say China dumping, China dumping. When we have a very competent team which monitors this dumping phenomena almost every day basis. If it happens, we'll come to know, and then DGTR initiates action. My worry is on the other count. Many times we need something because we don't make a particular grade. For example, steel. We don't make many grades of steel. We import them. Now, if we put anti-dumping safeguard duty on those things, those products will increase in price and will hurt us. So we need a more enlightened dialogue on this. To repeat this line, I said dumping possibility, yes, but our team in government is very competent monitoring dumping, and they are very keen to impose anti-dumping duties whenever such occasion arises. But we should not be too zealous on this part because many things we import, and if we impose anti-dumping or safeguard duties, then it's bad for us. One big example is steel.
Some very interesting question has come. If opposition in USA appeal for cutting down tariff because of whatever impact it might have on US economy and markets, can US Supreme Court intervene?
Oh my God, I'm very sorry. I'm very poor about their functioning. Very sorry. My ignorance.
What is your take on impact of tariffs on oil prices? What will stance OPEC take on the current situation?
So oil and gas and coal and everything else is exempted from the tariffs.
Exempted from the tariffs. The fall is mainly because of the recession worries.
Yes.
And any specific view you might have on shrimp exports, which is being impacted? How do you think that will really play out?
So one third of our shrimp export, about $2 billion, they go to US, and I have yet to analyze from which other countries Europe buys most of its shrimp. Somebody was telling Ecuador, which will be attracting more tariffs, but I have not analyzed that. So it's that relative disadvantage position. If that doesn't happen, then one third is too big, and our shrimp export may suffer.
May suffer.
Yes.
And what is the probable implication of, say, UK FTA European FTA, how would it benefit India or where it can hurt us?
So, in my life, half of my professional life, I was an FTA negotiator, FTA and WTO negotiator only. So, first thing, FTA is very fancy word. People feel you sign FTA and then your trade will shoot up. The less than 20% of world trade happens through preferential route. Less than 20%. 80% is non-preferential routes. Half the world trade flows at zero MF and tariffs. So when we talk about giving too much importance to FTAs, I say please focus on your product. Product, if you're a good product, will sell. Anyways, uh, you know, uh, how FTAs benefit a country or a product is that suppose I'm doing an FTA with Europe, and if Europe has, I'm exporting, say, gent shirts, and the UK charges 20% tariffs, it comes to zero. Of course, I'll be more competitive than other competitors, other suppliers to UK by 20%, so I can sell more. But the problem is that in most of the developed countries, the tariffs are already low. Of course, in labor-intensive goods like shirts and shoes, they are slightly on the higher side, but for the most industrial product, they are 2, 3, 4% only. So tariff wall is not high. So if it goes from 2% to 0%, we don't notice. So thing is that, and second, when we were negotiating Japan in 2008-9, we signed in 2010 or 11. Then our industry approached us that they say that Japan is a developed country, and they cannot stitch garments because labor is expensive. So ask them to make duties zero on all garments. So Japanese happily agreed. We thought now we can export everything to all the garments to Japan. But look at in the past 15 years, exports have barely increased because developed country they want very sophisticated, high-end money. I mean, unit price is not the criteria for them. It's not the criteria for poorer countries. So same applies to EU, same applies to UK. So some help will be there, but depends on product to product.
Hmm. And what is your view on pharma tariff post today's tweet?
Pharma. That
He
pharma.
is excluded yesterday, but yesterday night, he made one tweet
Uh-huh.
that unprecedented tariffs will be put on pharma because this is of national importance and we want industry to be back or something like that.
So Amisha, I did not see this tweet. I'm sleep deprived. I have not. But if we talk that he exempted pharma, he also exempted APIs, that is the raw material for pharma. And I was reading some unconfirmed gossip that US pharma lobby is very strong, but Trump and they don't go along well. And that's why it was exempted. Now they must have agreed on something. That's why he's just tweeting like this. I mean, I'm not in position to comment on this.
But during this whole phase of uncertainty or mess, while you did say that global manufacturers will take time to see where the tariff rests and how, but do you still think there are certain sectors which are at the cusp of China plus one strategy where investments or growth can happen in India?
So we were traditionally weak in machinery and electronics, which are the largest sector in terms of global trade volumes. And you have seen in the past 5 years after this PLI scheme, our electronics exports have zoomed up, and Apple exports are increasing. Apple products exports are increasing. Our iPhone, not iPhone, total smartphone exports are more than $16 billion. Of course, value addition is less, but everybody starts with low value addition. Then we keep on adding domestic value add gradually over the decade or so. So electronics, we have made the dent, and I suppose many more sectors. I mean, the positive turnaround is there.
What could be the extreme downside of US GDP growth?
We are reading, my guess would be, I think, Amisha, you can answer that better, but I just read that their inflation rates are above 5%. And how much is the interest rate is 4%, and that needs to be jacked up to contain inflation. Once they increase the inflation, this interest rate, then all the FPIs world over, they will be sucking money back to the US Treasury bonds, and then our stock markets will die. I mean, will fall down a bit, and then so it's not because he imposed tariffs on us. It's because the tariffs are harming US economy, and he has to protect US economy. For that, he has to take some action, and those actions will hurt everybody, because US can happily print dollars to buy anything. That's why they overspend, and a whole of the world has to suffer because of dependence on dollars.
And what kind of flexibility we have to counter things with currency?
So we are hearing that he is not going to stop at tariff. He has a 4 5 step plan. Next, he's going to ask countries to appreciate your currency. I mean, that means devalue your dollar vis-a-vis your currency, so that US can export more. That's going to come very soon. That's the rumor.
Explain again.
So
How can they compel?
Of course, they have compelled, I think, Japan Plaza Accord in 1982, 83, something like that. I read somewhere. So they can compel you. Why not? We have devalued our rupees so many times, 2 3 times. I think 90 during reforms, straight devaluation was there. So government can say, okay, this is the price of this. No market economy things. He can force it. And anyway, people, our economists, they talk from all the sides. They say the real price of rupee is 100 rupees a dollar. You must have read that, you know more than I do on these things. So our economists, they can immediately justify if it goes 100 rupees per dollar. This is the real level of the rupee. But he can, of course, if he forces us, our economists, some of the economists will justify that he's doing the right thing. I don't agree. That's why I say we are a large economy. We should be respectful to everyone, but we should not take decisions under any influence, under any duress. We should see whatever is good for the country. We should take all those decisions, painful decisions, which we avoid most of the time. But just because some guy who is there for some time is forcing you, we cannot hurt ourselves in long-term things.
So you do see a chance of a rupee which is slightly stabilized, once again coming under a little pressure.
So it's not rupee, it's
Rupee.
it's whole of the world. He's talking about India. For us, India is most important country. It's our home country. But for US, we are in terms of trade deficit, we are 12th or 13th in number. So he has bigger countries to worry.
Mm. And how do you see his tax concessions countering the demand slowdown in US, that he'll put more money in the hands of US population? So on one hand, currency will counter tariff cost push. So cost push will be to some extent neutralized. And you also put extra money in US investors, US citizens' hands to continue consumption. And in the meantime, the main purpose, is it really to increase US manufacturing?
Of course, he gets re-elected on the promise that he will bring back jobs and manufacturing, but that's not going to happen.
But is jobs the real issue in US at the moment?
Jobs is the real issue. I was reading that half the population, whatever data is there, half the population, they live day by day. If they don't have job, they don't have saving for the next month. They live on day-to-day basis. They don't save anything. And then we know the US produces 20% of our world GDP, consumes 40%. They're the big consumers. They have to think about cutting consumption for so many reasons. And how do they consume? Because they can print dollar by giving print command only. They don't have to earn dollars like us. So that's the basic reason. And that economics 101 principle, too many goods, too many dollars chasing same amount of goods will lead to inflation. That's what is happening. In COVID, they printed trillions of dollars, and that's why they are reaching here.
Inflation has been very sticky.
Yeah. So.
So while you say stay put, you do agree that both the world and Indian growth will taper off, while world growth will taper off sharper than Indian growth because of our more domestic nature of economy, at the same time, larger share of services then and manufacturing being very small. Is that correct understanding?
I fully agree with you. You said it. I don't need to answer this.
And how do you see interest rate panning out both globally and in India in the meantime?
So whatever we talk about our calculations, a whole of the world is dependent on what interest rate US announces. We all work backwards.
But of course, when we talk about US growth slowing down, but inflation going up, that would remain a conundrum for policymakers how to react in US.
So I don't want to focus on these financials because they are consumption driven economy. They want to print so many dollars, buy so many things that will continue. That's why their trade deficit will increase. But manufacturing is different ball game. Not the government, a firm will have to do. Person like you and me will have to set up unit, and for that I have to be competitive. I have to hire US laborers. Can I hire US labor and make shoes and sell that can still sell in the US compared to what price China charges? No. For 80% of the industrial products, no, it can't be done. They have to focus on services, high-end, super high-end manufacturing that will be done mostly by robots, not by human beings. And so they have to forget about manufacturing. And I'll take 1 minute. In 1970s, they were the leaders in manufacturing, from garments to engineering goods to vehicles, everything.
Correct.
They only decided,
Correct.
no, we will not do it. Let some
All this
people
is
done.
dirty work.
Yes. Now, steel and aluminum, they're the dirtiest. And
Correct.
they want the steel and aluminum back to their country. So
Correct.
they're acting like us, worse than us.
Worse than us.
And they want whole of the world to listen to them all the time. That's why we have to stay aloof. We should not overreact. We should not act too much. We have to look internally and improve ourselves. That's the best thing we can do to ourselves.
Any little idea you can throw that in this environment, what are the key policy reforms government should focus on?
So
Indian government.
We have to talk at the sector level. If first I talk about horizontal reforms, and
You will talk about?
Horizontal reform that they apply across the sectors. Then, for example, I'll tell you something, such a small thing which can be done immediately but not being done, and how much pain. Our imports are $700 billion. And if government changes a tariff, say 5% to 10%, it issues a notification. Reading that notification is a pain. How much pain? So one of my friend from the media, he shared a notification last month with me, and he said, "Please explain what is this." So it was writing. I could not understand, but whatever notification numbers were referred, I went there. It was referring to 1997 notification. I went to that notification, and then I could see it was about a particular product. So I said, on this product, tariff has been increased from 10 to 20%. And I got this information after 4 hours of work. And then next day he says, you आपने फंसा दिया मुझे गलत information देकर. So I was expected to see the first notification 1997. Then from first it was 10%. In 2011 it became 10%. So it increased from 10 to 20%. So 4 hours were not sufficient. The government can simply say, we are increasing tariff from 10% to 20% on this product. Neither product name was there, nor from what it is there, 20% on what product. No, a simple language. So I always joke, if we can't do these things, where no politician will stop this, nobody has any interest into this, why we are not doing this? If we don't do this, then we don't have right to talk about deeper things. So it was just thing, but steel, we talk about steel. We have there are 10,000 grades of steel in the world, and we have imposed a QCO, quality control order, on 1,300 grades of steel. But what steel ministry wants Indian customs to do, for the remaining grades of steel where there is no QCO, you importer has to come to steel ministry. I mean, they have to use their website and take NOC from steel ministry that this grade is not covered under QCO. So these stupid things, you know, the consignments, they are stuck at the port. They were stuck at the ports for months together. In January and December, problem was big. So sector by sector, hundreds and hundreds of pain points are there, and everybody knows. It's not that it needs any special thing. Everybody knows. You talk to a person at the sector, and he will tell you. We need to do those things, and I say no politician has interest in most of these things. It can be done. Why we are not doing it?
These are operational challenges. As an organization, we face operational challenge. I think these are country level operational challenge. As what you're trying to say.
Amisha, you are being very polite and kind. I will say, if we cannot do this, then stop talking about bigger things. That's what. It's like my son or daughter is weak in mathematics, and if he or she is unable to cram the table of 5 or 10, I cannot expect him to do calculus and all those things. So there is no justification for this. We should do it. We deserve better.
I agree, of course. Of course. But sir, this was an extremely insightful discussion. And this, you know, the nerves of how industry works in India and globally. And we would be very keen to have you again after some time and take up a little more on some of the relevant topics. Thank you so much. You had given us 1 hour, so I'm just winding it up. But we
Amisha,
would have
you know,
learned to live
we
more
could
from
have,
you.
we could talk together. We could talk because of your very insightful questions. You prodded me, and it was coming naturally. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.